There is a document sitting on a mahogany desk in a private office in Washington, D.C. right now that reads less like a foreign policy strategy and more like a script for the greatest bank robbery in human history. But this isn't a robbery of a vault, a casino, or a central bank. It is the hostile takeover of an entire sovereign nation. While the mainstream media distracts you with sensational headlines about restoring democracy, fighting socialism, and human rights regarding the rapidly escalating tensions between the incoming Trump administration and the Maduro regime, the real movers of the global chessboard, the people who view nations as balance sheets, are preparing for a liquidation event. This is not a war. This is a foreclosure. Yesterday, Eric Prince, the founder of the private military giant Blackwater and a shadowy influential advisor to the inner circle of the new administration, made a statement that sent shockwaves through the dark web of commodities traders, even if the retail public missed it. He didn't talk about elections. He didn't talk about diplomacy. He talked about the bounty. He explicitly proposed raising the bounty on the Venezuelan leadership to $100 million paid for, not by U.S. tax dollars, but by the frozen assets of the Venezuelan people currently held in U.S. banks. He declared, simply and brutally, "The time is now. The assets are there. The management needs to be changed." But why now? Why, with a staggering $36 trillion national debt, with wars raging in Ukraine and the Middle East, and with a weary public, would the United States open a third front in South America? The answer lies in the hidden mechanism of the U.S. Treasury. The United States is functionally bankrupt. We are drowning in debt interest payments that now exceed our defense budget. Inflation is sticky and threatens to resurgence. To save the U.S. dollar from a catastrophic collapse in 2026, the government desperately needs an injection of cheap, tangible, physical collateral. They don't want Venezuela's politics. They want Venezuela's reserves. Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves on the planet, 303 billion barrels. That is more than Saudi Arabia. That is more than Russia. At current market prices, that is roughly $20 trillion of assets sitting under the feet of a government that cannot defend it and cannot extract it. Donald Trump, a businessman first and a politician second, views Venezuela not as a country, but as a distressed asset. A company with great inventory but terrible management, ripe for a hostile takeover. The plan is terrifyingly simple. Use private contractors, mercenaries, to decapitate the regime, install a friendly board of directors, and seize the oil revenue to pay down the U.S. deficit and crash the price of gas to $2 a gallon to win the midterms. It is a heist disguised as liberation. CTA, call to action. If you want to understand the wars that are actually fought for your wallet, and if you want to be on the winning side of this massive wealth transfer, you need to subscribe to this channel right now. We don't read the news headlines. We read the balance sheets behind the news. Click that subscribe button and turn on notifications because the operation has already begun. And while the world argues about the morality of this invasion on social media, Warren Buffett is quietly voting with his checkbook. He hasn't said a word about Maduro. He hasn't commented on Eric Prince. But he has aggressively increased his stake in Chevron and Occidental Petroleum. Chevron is the only American oil major that never fully left Venezuela. It is the only company that holds the golden ticket, the OFAC General License 41, to operate the oil fields. Buffett knows that in a hostile takeover, the soldiers get paid wages, but the operators get the royalties. He is positioning himself to be the landlord of the largest oil field in the Western Hemisphere when the smoke clears. To understand why this invasion is a mathematical inevitability for 2026, regardless of what the State Department says, we have to strip away the political rhetoric and look at the plumbing of the global oil market. We need to deconstruct the heavy crude paradox. Most people think oil is oil. If you have oil, you have gas. This is false. It is a lie of simplification. There are many types of oil, and they are not interchangeable. The United States produces a massive amount of oil in Texas, in the Permian Basin. We are the world's largest producer, but this oil is light sweet crude. Think of it like champagne. It is thin, volatile, easy to refine, and great for making plastics and jet fuel. However, the U.S. refinery system, the massive industrial complex along the Gulf Coast of Texas and Louisiana that turns oil into the gasoline you put in your car, was built in the 1980s and 90s. It was engineered specifically, chemically, and structurally to process heavy sour crude. Think of this oil like molasses or tar. It is thick, dirty, full of sulfur and heavy metals. Here is the paradox that creates the crisis. We have too much champagne, light oil, and not enough molasses, heavy oil. Our multi-billion-dollar refineries cannot run efficiently on just light oil. They need the heavy stuff to blend. If they run only on light oil, they operate at 60% or 70% efficiency. This drives up the cost per gallon. Where did we used to get the heavy stuff? Russia and Venezuela. We sanctioned Russia. We sanctioned Venezuela. The result? Our refineries are starving. They are buying heavy oil from Canada, but the pipelines are full. They are bidding up the price of the scarce heavy barrels globally. This keeps gas prices artificially high and, more importantly, keeps diesel prices high. Diesel powers the trucks that move every product in America. High diesel means high inflation for eggs, milk, and lumber. The U.S. economy physically requires Venezuelan oil to function at peak efficiency and lower inflation. We cannot frack our way out of this problem because fracking produces the wrong type of oil. This creates the strategic imperative. Donald Trump has promised to lower inflation. He has promised to lower energy costs by 50% within 12 months. He cannot do that with U.S. drilling alone. The physics don't work. The chemistry doesn't work. He needs the heavy crude from the Orinoco Belt in Venezuela to flood the Gulf Coast refineries. But he cannot buy it from Maduro because of the sanctions, the corruption, and the political cost of funding a socialist adversary. So the only solution, the business solution, is to change the management. This is not a diplomatic dispute. This is a corporate boardroom battle played with drones, sanctions, and special forces. Buffett understands this refinery mismatch better than anyone. He reads the weekly refinery input reports from the EIA. He sees that Chevron is currently pumping a small amount in Venezuela. He knows that if Trump removes Maduro, that small amount becomes a tsunami. Chevron will be given the keys to the kingdom. They have the engineers, the maps, the geologists, and the infrastructure already in place. Buffett is buying the company that owns the passwords to the Venezuelan treasury. We need to move this from the map room to your daily life. I want you to feel the volatility of a privatized war. This will not be Desert Storm with CNN cameras and embedded reporters. This will be a shadow war, a gray zone conflict that hits your portfolio before you see it on the news. I want you to close your eyes. Imagine it is a Thursday morning in March 2026. The markets have been jittery for weeks. There are rumors of training exercises in Guyana and Colombia. There are reports of mercenaries gathering in the Caribbean. You wake up and check the price of oil on your phone, as you do every morning since the crisis began. Yesterday, West Texas Intermediate, WTI, was trading at $75 a barrel. Today, the number on your screen is flashing green, $115. You rub your eyes. You think, did the war start? Did nukes fly? You turn on the TV. There are no U.S. Marines landing on beaches. There are no aircraft carriers launching jets. The White House press secretary is denying any involvement. Instead, there are confusing, chaotic reports flooding Twitter and Telegram. Massive blackout in Caracas. Unknown special unit seizing oil terminals. Cyber attack on PDVSA headquarters. Drone swarms over the presidential palace. It is a hybrid war. The uncertainty causes a massive war risk premium in the markets. You go to the gas station on your way to work. The price has jumped $1.20 overnight. The digital signs are being updated as you watch. The fear premium is hitting your wallet instantly. The stock market crashes 5% because algorithms hate uncertainty. Your tech stocks, Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, are bleeding red because high oil prices mean high inflation and higher interest rates. You panic. You think about selling everything. But then, 48 hours later, the narrative flips completely. A press release is issued, not from the White House, not from the UN, but from a transitional council backed by private security firms and major energy consultants. The headline reads, "The oil fields are secure. Production is ramping up. Exports to the U.S. Gulf Coast will resume immediately under new administration." Suddenly, the price of oil crashes. It free falls from $115 down to $55. Why? Because the market realizes the hostile takeover was successful. The supply gates are open, the risk premium evaporates, and the supply glut begins. This violent volatility, the massive spike up and the violent crash down, wipes out retail traders who tried to short or long at the wrong time. It triggers margin calls. But for the insider who knew the plan, Buffett, it is a masterful play. He bought Chevron before the spike. He collects the massive dividends during the chaos. And he owns the production rights after the crash. You, the average consumer, are left with whiplash. You paid $5.50 for gas on Tuesday, and by Friday it's dropping to $3, but your stock portfolio was liquidated by the volatility algorithm on Wednesday because you panicked. You were the collateral damage of a war you didn't even know had officially started. The media pundits will call this unprecedented. They will call it Trump's private war. They will act like this is a new low in international relations. But students of history know this is the oldest play in the American playbook. We are seeing the echo of two specific events: the Banana Wars and Operation Ajax. First, the Banana Wars, 1910s, 1920s. In the early 20th century, the U.S. Marines weren't fighting for democracy in Honduras, Guatemala, or Haiti. They were fighting for the United Fruit Company and Standard Oil. Major General Smedley Butler, the most decorated Marine in history at the time, famously wrote in his book, "War is a Racket." I spent 33 years in the Marine Corps, and during that period I spent most of my time being a high-class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street and the bankers. I helped make Mexico safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National City Bank boys to collect revenues in. We are seeing the return of the Smedley Butler era. But this time, we don't use the Marines, which requires Congress approval, creates bad PR, and risks American lives. We use private military contractors, PMCs. We use the Eric Prince model. It is the East India Company model of the 21st century. Corporate armies securing corporate assets for the benefit of the sovereign debt. Second, look at Operation Ajax, 1953. In 1953, the CIA and British intelligence orchestrated a coup to overthrow the democratically elected Prime Minister of Iran, Mohammad Mossadegh. Why? Because he nationalized the oil. He took it back from the British. The US installed the Shah, a dictator who was friendly to Western oil companies. The oil flowed. The prices stabilized. The objective was achieved. The 2026 Venezuela scenario is Operation Ajax 2.0. But instead of CIA spies paying protesters, which is slow, it is kinetic privatization, which is fast. The economic reality is simple. Iraq had oil, and we invaded. Venezuela has oil, and we are broke. The Trump-Prince model for Venezuela is designed to be self-funding. The pitch to the American taxpayer is, we take the oil fields first, and the oil revenue pays the mercenaries. It costs you nothing. It is a bootstrapped invasion. Buffett remembers the Banana Wars. He was born during the era of empire. He lived through the 1953 coup. He knows that when the U.S. empire needs resources to survive, it takes them. And the companies that facilitate the taking, the Chevrons, the Halliburtons, become the most valuable stocks on the NYSE. But here is the plot twist. The real target isn't Maduro. The real enemy isn't socialism. The real target is China. Venezuela is not just a country. It is a Chinese collateral account. Venezuela currently owes roughly $60 billion to China. Over the last decade, China has loaned billions to Venezuela to build infrastructure and keep the regime alive. In exchange, China received guaranteed oil shipments for the next 20 years. Venezuela is China's strategic energy piggy bank in Latin America. If the U.S. or U.S.-backed private forces seizes the Venezuelan government, what happens to that Chinese debt? It gets repudiated. The new transitional government in Caracas, installed by Washington, will declare, that debt was taken by an illegitimate dictator. We are not paying it. And we are canceling the oil shipments to Beijing. All oil now goes to Houston to pay for our liberation. This is the ultimate geopolitical checkmate. It is an act of resource denial. By taking Venezuela, Trump doesn't just lower U.S. inflation. He starves China of a critical energy lifeline, right as tensions over Taiwan are heating up. It forces China to buy more oil from the Middle East, where the US Navy controls the shipping lanes, the Strait of Hormuz. The hidden crisis is that this could trigger a retaliation from China. China won't just accept a $60 billion loss and an energy blockade. They could retaliate financially. They could dump US treasuries, as we discussed in the Dollar Dies video. They could launch cyber attacks on the US power grid, as we discussed in the Blackout video. The Venezuela operation is not an isolated event. It is the first domino in a global resource war. Buffett sees this escalation. That is why he is quietly buying defense stocks. He has undisclosed positions in the sector. That is why he likes railroads, BNSF, which are essential for moving military equipment and domestic oil if the sea lanes become dangerous. He is betting on a world where free trade is replaced by strategic capture. So, let's analyze Buffett's war portfolio with a microscope. Why is he betting so heavily on Chevron, CVX, and Occidental OXY in this specific context? Why not Exxon? Why not renewables? The operator, thesis, Chevron. Chevron is unique. It is the chosen one. It holds OFAC General License 41. This is a special permission slip from the US Treasury that allows it to operate in Venezuela, despite all other sanctions. It effectively runs the joint ventures with PDVSA, the Venezuelan state oil company. If the regime falls, the state company collapses. The bureaucracy vanishes. Who steps in to run the pumps? Who knows the geology? Who has the keys to the control room? Chevron. In a privatization scenario, Chevron is the logical, inevitable buyer of the Venezuelan assets for pennies on the dollar. Buffett owns Chevron because he knows they are the designated survivor of the Venezuelan oil industry. They will acquire reserves worth trillions for a purchase price of billions. It is the deal of the century. The price floor thesis, Occidental. Even if the invasion lowers oil prices in the long run, by flooding the market, the chaos of the transition creates a massive spike in the short term. OXY is a high beta oil stock. It moves violently with the oil price. Buffett owns OXY warrants and preferred stock. If oil spikes to $150 during the invasion scare, OXY prints money faster than any other major. Buffett exercises his warrants and captures the upside. He is playing both sides. Chevron for the long-term asset seizure, real estate play, and OXY for the short-term war volatility, cash flow play. The cash option, $380 billion. War is expensive. War breaks things. War causes panic. If the Venezuela operation goes wrong, if it triggers a wider conflict, or if China retaliates by sinking a tanker, the markets will crash. Buffett holds cash to be the buyer of last resort. If the market panics, Buffett steps in. He is using the fog of war as a smokescreen to acquire monopolies when everyone else is selling out of fear. The warning is clear. The drums of war are beating in the Caribbean. The US debt crisis demands a resource injection. How do you survive and profit from the Venezuela heist of 2026? Action 1. Overweight integrated oil majors. You want to own the companies that have the political connections to get the contracts. Chevron, CVX, is the primary play here. ExxonMobil, Exxon, is the secondary play. They are active in neighboring Guyana. These companies are effectively the State Department with a drill. When the US government opens a door or kicks it down, these guys walk in. Avoid small, speculative oil explorers who might get nationalized or crushed in the crossfire. Stick to the giants who write the laws. Action 2. The defense hedge. If the war is being privatized, who gets paid? The private military contractors and the companies that supply them. While you can't buy stock in Academy, formerly Blackwater, easily on the public market, you can buy the defense primes that supply the hardware, the ammunition, and the drones. Look at ETFs like ITA, US Aerospace and Defense, or XAR. Conflict is inflationary for the general economy, but it is very profitable for the military-industrial complex. Align your portfolio with the spending. Action 3. Prepare for volatility whipsaw. Do not trade oil futures unless you are a professional. The news cycle will be manipulated. You will hear, Maduro fled, oil crashes. Then, Maduro fights back, oil spikes. Then peace talks, crash. Then pipeline blown up, spike. The whipsaw will kill leveraged traders. Buy the stock, equity, and hold through the noise. Do not use margin. You want to own the asset, not the bet. Action 4. Watch the refiners. Valero, Marathon. If heavy Venezuelan crude finally flows back to the U.S. Gulf Coast, the U.S. refiners, like Valero, VLO, or Marathon, MPC, become money-printing machines. Their crack spread, profit margin, explodes because their input cost, heavy oil, drops significantly, while they sell gasoline at global market prices. This is a technical trade, but it is the direct beneficiary of the heist. Action 5. Physical cash and gold. Geopolitical conflict brings cyber warfare. If China retaliates against the U.S. banking system because of the Venezuela move, digital payments could flicker. Keep cash, keep gold. Gold is also the peace of mind asset. When armies march, gold rises. It is the universal hedge against chaos. The final verdict on the Trump-Venezuela plan is a lesson in realpolitik. We like to believe the world runs on laws, treaties, and good intentions. It runs on physics, energy, and debt. The U.S. needs oil to fix its debt. Venezuela has the oil. The outcome is inevitable. The only variable is the timeline. Warren Buffett isn't judging the morality of the heist. He is simply positioning himself to catch the gold coins that fall out of the pockets of the regime when it is shaken upside down. He is betting on the ruthlessness of the American empire to save itself. You must do the same. Stop looking at politics as a team sport. Look at it as a business transaction. The acquisition of Venezuela is underway. Position yourself in energy. Position yourself in defense. Get liquid. Be like Buffett. See the cold, hard reality of the resource war and ensure that when the map is redrawn, you are standing on the territory that just went up in value. I am immensely grateful to you for staying until the end of this critical deep dive. The mainstream media will not tell you this story until the first missile lands. You heard it here first. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure to like and subscribe so we can keep bringing you the truth about the financial system that the brochures leave out. Stay vigilant, stay real, and we will see you in the next video.